Hi, I'm Dani Brown, the Queen of Filth, or Queenie preferred. That's Jerkface behind me. And I am ready for another Friday night story time. It's actually Friday night. It's the 14th of April. Now, I don't think there's going to be one next week. There might possibly be one the week after, which might be my first with editing. In fact, I'm going to use this video to practice editing once I get it uploaded and practice during the week on various apps. I've got myself an iPad now, and I'm using the free trial of various apps to see which ones I'm going to keep and which ones I will be getting rid of. I think Photoshop for iPad is going, but Photoshop Express is staying. I used to use Photoshop like years ago when I was on an older Mac, and I loved it. And then I didn't use it when I was using Windows because I can't do anything in Windows because Windows sucks. So when I got my MacBook, I started using GIMP, which is an open source basically photo manipulator, and you can do drawings and stuff, and I started using that, and I've been using that since, and I don't think I like the mobile version of Photoshop very much, but we'll see how I get along with it over the upcoming weeks. So you can read about what's going on with my house on my website, which is why these videos are been a bit erratic lately, and but when I come back stably in a few weeks, I'll start getting some stories from people who aren't my friends and open it up properly as submissions. They'll be editing. Lights will follow sometime over the summer. Obviously, cost of living and stuff, everything's gone up in price. Not just pasta and bread and milk and so all the groceries, which gives me less money, and then having to buy other things for the house, like paint. I think I spent 100 quid on paint, and well, it would have been 120 if there weren't like sales on it, but that's okay. And yeah, so you can read all about that on my website, and it'll probably give you a clue as to when I'll be coming back doing these weekly again. So again, just thank you so very much for clicking on the video, for sharing it with your friends, for commenting, for liking. It really is helping the algorithm. If I remember, I'll take a screenshot of what happened when I didn't have a video for, it's been 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm not too sure because I've spent a lot of time painting. And thank you so much for buying Satan's Yeast Infection. It's only available on godless.com, but that one's really climbing up the charts, and you can get some of my other books on there as well. So, right, let's get to the story. It's from Greg James again. We had him a few weeks ago. I think it was Death of the Balloon or something along those lines. I'm terrible with names and titles, but we've got Greg James again. And this one is called The Girl in the Box, and it's, excuse me, I'm not a vape influencer, but I obviously didn't have enough nicotine between putting on my makeup and starting this video. Next time I will edit that part out, but for now you're going to have to sit here and watch me vape before I get to the story. It's a very interesting one. Reminds me of my son's room, although we didn't put cardboard up in it. What am I vaping? I think it's meant to be cherry flavor, but there's like grape with it as well. So, oops. Okay, so it's called The Girl in the Box. It had been raining indoors since she moved into the room. The cold and the damp were her constant companions here, as well as the mold, which was spreading out in dark molted patches with long fingers. She wrapped herself up in a dressing gown and duvet to ward off the encroaching unpleasantness and feel some small comfort, though there were spots of mold starting to appear on the duvet. She had to do something about all of this, so she started placing orders online, as many as she could afford. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door of the room. She shuffled across the floor, trying not to trip on her trailing duvet, and opened it. The delivery men never waited to see her or to say hello. It wasn't safe for them to do so, though she couldn't quite remember why. The cold and the damp kept giving her headaches, making her forget things. Life outside the room was lost in the cloying fog that gathered behind her eyes. The delivery was waiting for her on the ground outside as usual. She could see condensation starting to collect on the sellotape sealing it. She picked up the box, opened it, tipped out the contents, and kicked it all the way into the dark outside before taking the empty container inside, not forgetting to take care to close the door. The box was what she wanted. It was all she needed. So far, the deliveries had allowed her to fashion a rough carpet out of unfolded boxes, all held together by precious peeling sellotape. This box would help her to make a start on the walls. She took it apart. She took it to a spot where the mold was getting particularly bad, making the paint bubble and flake away like old dead skin. Unfolding the box, taking care not to tear it or the sellotape, she put it in place and pressed down hard until it held true. She stood back and looked at her work. Soon the walls would be covered up, and then it would be time to fix the ceiling. She would defeat the cold and the damp and the mold, no matter what. There was another knock at the door. It was some time later, and she was making good progress on the walls. They were about half covered with unfolded boxes, but she could see the mold was getting steadily thicker, forming itself into a black weeping crust. It was spreading faster, too. It knew what she was doing. Somehow, it did not want to be suffocated. It did not want to die. She sat down and placed even more orders online until her fingers hurt from hammering away at the keyboard. Her eyes ached from staring at the constantly refreshing brightness of her laptop screen. A knock at the door, a knock at the door, another knock at the door, more boxes, even more boxes, every one of them unceremoniously emptied of its contents, unfolded and plastered into place over the walls of the room. Her back, her shoulders, her arms, her legs were on fire from the constant effort, the constant motion, the work that never ceased. She shivered as a pattering of drizzle fell from the ceiling onto her head. It had begun to rain in the room. She didn't like it. It made everything smell ripe, and the cardboard was becoming unpleasantly moist underfoot. If she didn't stop the rain, it might dissolve the carpet, and then she would have to start all over again. She couldn't let that happen, not when she was so close to making it all stop. Her brain was tired. It begged her to close her eyes, lay down, and sleep. But she couldn't heed its pleas. She had to finish the room before the mold, the cold, and the damp took over completely. She could do it. She had to do it. Just a little more time, a little more effort. That was all she needed. The walls were done, so she moved on to the ceiling. She would make it stop raining. She would make it stop smelling no matter what. Then she could curl up in bed at long last and rest. So many deliveries had come. The boxes were stacking up outside in shuddering piles. Balancing tiptoe on a rickety chair, barely reaching, she stuck their cardboard to the ceiling. Her vision was clouding and sweat tickled at her temples. Her ankles throbbed from the in-point strain of building the cardboard ceiling, but gradually, bit by bit, the black rain was going to go away. The room was becoming warm, safe, and dry. She felt like smiling, but she didn't dare do so yet. It was too early for elation, too soon for satisfaction. She had to finish first, then she could smile, then she could rest. There was one patch of moldy ceiling left to cover. It was in the top far left corner of the room. She dragged the chair across the floor and put it in place for when the final delivery arrived. All she needed was one more box and the room would be safe. Then she could sleep. She sat down on the bed, wrapped in dressing gown and duvet, crossed legs. She waited and waited and waited. There was no knock at the door. A knot of anxiety began to tighten deep inside her chest. She dug her fingers into the duvet until the damp fabric began to tear. Her eyes fixated on the dank, moldy top corner of the room, bare, uncovered. Spots of mold were starting to show on the surrounding layers of cardboard. Sellotape was becoming damp, starting to peel away and fall to the floor. Tears strung her eyes. I was so close. I was almost done. I thought I had defeated it, no matter what. There was a knock at the door. She ran over, opened the door, picked up the box, hurriedly emptied it, unfolded it, and dashed to the chair in the corner. Mounting its precarious structure, she stood on tiptoe, biting at the insides of her mouth, and reached up to place the cardboard and reached up to place the cardboard over the black patch of ceiling. It was a slightly higher angle than the other corners of the room. She couldn't reach it. An inch was all she needed. She didn't have it. No. She sank down from her tiptoes, rocking her weight back onto her heels, and let out a low sob. The black crust was spreading out again. The rain, which had almost ebbed away, was rattling onto the floor again, eating away at her precious carpet. No! She would not let it win. Taking a deep breath, she placed one foot on the back of the chair. Feeling the top bite into the arch of her foot, she braced herself and pushed up hard with the other. Both feet were on the top rail now. She reached for the last black patch of ceiling, and the sellotape pressed into place, sealing the mold away, suffocating it for good. She'd done it. The room was safe. No more mold, no more indoor rain, no more cold, and no more damp. It was time to sleep and rest. She smiled. It was allowed. The chair wobbled violently from side to side, threatening to slip away from under her feet. She dug her fingernails into the cardboard ceiling to stop herself from falling. A monstrous tearing sound came from above. Something bright, sharp, and long pushed its way into the room through the ceiling. As she watched, it tore across the middle of the ceiling, showering her with cardboard debris. All her hard work, undone in seconds. The ceiling split open, folding back on itself. She lost her grip. The chair fell, and so did she. Light spilled into the room, shielding her eyes from the intensity of the glare. She called out, "Hello, is someone there?" A shadow came into view, a big shadow. It must have been someone's head. A giant hand reached down into the room. The box that she made, it groped around for a moment before picking her up from where she'd fallen. It carried her away out of the box into the light. "Aha!" a faraway voice said. "Just what I've always wanted." The end. So, yeah, my son's room, it was raining in there for quite some time. It's fixed now, so we'll be getting him a new bed, and then when the old one's dismantled, I'm going to paint in there before putting up the new one. So that's on the list to do at the beginning of May. So I'm hoping, as I say, middle of May, early June, to be back to doing weekly videos with editing, lights to follow, a tripod to follow, and we'll start making this really good and get some proper branding on it. So I will post Greg's links down below. I'll also post my links. I'll post the links to where you can follow about my house as well. And I'll post the links to Satan's Yeast Infection just because that's just doing so remarkably well right now. And it's only on Godless, and for whatever reason, my Booklinker account isn't working right now. It won't refresh and show me the second to third page of books, so I can't post too many book links, only from that first page. But yeah, so I'll do that, and I will hopefully see you. Probably not next week because I get to put the china from the china cabinet away and clean out the cupboard under the stairs, which I don't really want to do. But as I'll be having a charity come and collect my son's old bed and some other bits and pieces from his room, they might as well collect everything at once. And yeah, that'll be much easier. And hopefully the person who was going to help me get stuff into the loft will have recovered from COVID soon, and then they can come and help me. So, right, I will see you in a few weeks. Again, don't get too attached to these being every week until I say my house is done and everything else I needed to do is done. I also have to get my Godless releases for the rest of the year ready because it's filling up fast, and I'm probably going to have an August, September release, definitely an October release, definitely a December release. So, right, see you soon.